Okay. Great. All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us today. My name is Jay Sehos. I'm the VP of Marketing at StayLinked. And also on the phone is Justin Griffith, who is our CTO. After I get through the main body of the presentation here, we're going to take about 10 minutes and show you our product demo, which any of you can hit at any time using clients you can download in a number of places. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to be talking about SmartTE, which is StayLinked's terminal emulation modernization product. And we say that it just works because it does work right out of the box, and we'll be talking about that in a few moments here. So the plan for the discussion today, and I should mention you are all on mute, but please do type in questions at any time in the chat window on the right, and we'll do our best to get to those at the end of the session today. So we are going to, do a StayLinked overview. I recognize a lot of the names in the session today, but there might be some folks that don't know us that well. And our architecture is very relevant to how we do terminal emulation modernization. We'll touch on why we need to modernize TE today and what the driving factors are. And then we'll get into the product. So we'll talk about the features and benefits, and then we'll talk about how we compare to other products available. From that point, Justin will jump in and show the fun stuff with the product demonstration, and then we'll answer your questions. So let's get started. So as many of you do know, StayLinked has been around for quite some time. We started out as a AS400 application consulting firm. So, we were the guys that wrote the applications that ran on the host systems. And we still do some of that today. In fact, the demo system that Justin will be showing is a WMS that we wrote for the purposes of demoing the product and letting our partners and customers get access to. And that's pretty important. It puts us in a unique position in the terminal emulation world, where, who are the best people to figure out how to deliver these apps to mobile devices than the guys that write them. It was around 13, 14 years ago, we created the StayLinked product. So before that, we were strictly consulting. We saw a need in the market to build a solution that would eliminate drop sessions, orphan sessions, all of those things. And those of you that know us well, that's probably where you learned about us first. We're very secure, certainly the most secure product in the terminal emulation world. And our licensing model is different from anyone else. Our licensing is based on concurrent sessions, and these are fully transferable licenses. We are a centralized server-based model, and that gives us an awful lot of benefits, and in fact was pivotal in making it really easy for us to execute modernization for terminal emulation, and I'll talk about that a little bit in a moment. We do support many devices and operating systems. For our classic terminal emulation product, we support everything from Linux, handhelds, and DOS, and Palm, all the way up to iOS. And actually, in the next week or so, we'll be releasing our first Windows 10 terminal emulation client with SmartTE for Windows 10 around the end of the year. Something that's also unique about us is we're the only major terminal emulation company around that's focused 100% on terminal emulation. If you told me 15 years ago that I would be, talking about the bright future of terminal emulation in 2016, I would think you were crazy. But it's funny how markets can develop. We're doing more business all the time, and we're building new products all the time. And it's all we do. We certainly, our management team will not decide that terminal emulation is not, a viable business for us going forward. We've already decided that that's what we're all about, and we've got some exciting things to talk about on that front, including application modernization and StayLinked IQ, our business intelligence product that we'll talk about briefly. So just to make sure everyone knows what we're talking about here, so this picture kind of speaks for itself. We're basically talking about taking those green screen applications that run all of these business critical business processes on your host systems out to your mobile data collection device. This slide kind of makes sure we're all in the right place right now. Our product is not targeted at small, medium, or large customers in particular. It applies across the board. We've got 2 user companies and users with thousands of licenses internationally. So we can solve problems both big and small. So when we talk about our architecture, we like to talk about it in terms of the history of terminal emulation. And I do apologize for the experts out there, but I think this bears repeating for a lot of folks. So, my first job when I got out of college, I worked for the Boeing airplane company up in Everett, Washington, and I was a manufacturing engineer, and I spent most of my time sitting at a desk looking at a terminal with green text and a black background that, hooked up through a token ring wired network to these host systems that hosted, among other things, manufacturing plans for the 747. And that was a dumb terminal. So basically, it's a single-purpose terminal hardwired into the application in the back end, which was a great improvement over, walking around with paper and checking off lists and putting those in files. So great improvement, amazing productivity leap. And then in the early 80s, we got the PC. And that was great. And so suddenly I was able to do a little bit of word processing and maybe a spreadsheet or two to track a project. But I also needed to access those manufacturing plans on the host system. So we needed some software to run on that PC that would basically emulate that dumb terminal. And that's where the phrase terminal emulation comes from. We're emulating the dumb terminal. That worked great. Everybody's happy. Where it started to get a little dicey is when we added wireless to the equation. So once again, we've got a terminal emulator that runs on that mobile computer, connected in real time through an access point to that host application. Well, at first it wasn't too bad. The old DOS terminals did a pretty good job unless the coverage got a little sporadic. So then you'd be dropping sessions, you'd be orphaning sessions on the server. The administrator, his first job in the morning would be to log into the server and kill all the orphaned sessions. So I'm sure that sounds familiar to a lot of you. But then when we got into new OSs like CE, and I think it was around CE 2.2 or so, when we started to see it on the data collection devices, well, those things would drop their connection when they went to sleep, for instance. So there was all kinds of trouble. And the initial solution, because the original terminal emulation, wireless terminal emulation products ran on the handheld themselves. So that erratic connection was a real problem. So folks built hardware servers to kind of play a game of telephone to keep the connections alive. And that, it worked fairly well. And there are some software versions of this, sort of a proxy server created. And, the main problem with those ended up being, well, they kind of got forgot about. They sat in the corner. The hardware needed to be maintained. The software maybe didn't get updated. They didn't see a lot of love, and you started to see problems with those. So, the main problem they were trying to solve was running Telnet over TCP/IP on a wireless network designed for that. The Telnet was designed for a wired connection, and we're building these kind of cobbling together these solutions with pieces in the middle to make this square peg fit in a round hole. So because we came to the game a little bit late, in 2002 with this product, we were able to design our terminal emulation product for wireless networks. So the first thing we did was we got rid of that 45-year-old protocol. And we wrote our own protocol. It's UDP-based. It's very secure. We use blowfish encryption. So that's the communication from the server out to the mobile device. There's no telnet out there. All the telnet takes place on the server between that host application and our software server that we install. So those telnet sessions never drop because they're always connected. You know, the only way they're going to drop is if that AS400 goes down. And, you know, if that disaster happens, we are certainly the least of your problems. So, you know, just by the design, we're able to solve all those issues in the warehouse. So what we're sending down to the mobile device, you know, it looks like terminal emulation, but it's, you know, it's just a presentation layer. And so when we decided to move to SmartTE, all we really had to do, once we knew what we wanted the screens to look like, was deliver a different presentation layer out to the mobile device. So we didn't have to change, you know, the real nuts and bolts of the product. So it's still very solid, you know, field test, a new presentation. So, you know, the reason I went through all of this was to talk about, you know, that why our SmartTE product works so well. So with that being said, let's talk what we're here to talk about, modernization. So, you know, there's a lot changing in our markets in transportation and logistics and warehousing and the like. There's a lot of factors influencing them, you know. For instance, the Amazon effect. You know, they're becoming more and more efficient at what they do and kind of creating an environment where the competitors have to try to keep up and try to keep their costs down. This, in part, is part of the reason so many folks are moving to 3PLs for fulfillment, you know, because they're letting the experts handle it. You know, they're getting the advantage of the volume that these folks handle every day. Of course, you know, we're kind of back to that multiple operating system thing, right? So X number of years ago, we went from DOS, and then there was different flavors of CE, and then there was Palm, and everything had to run across all these OSs, and then it kind of settled down. You know, we just, for the most part, had CE Windows Mobile. And now, as you all know, it's kind of ramped up again. So, you know, Windows 10 is a whole new animal from CE. Obviously, Android, we do support iOS. We're seeing some of that. You know, we do sell that product. So, you know, that's driving a lot of change. Of course, as we all hear with millennials and even older folks like me, you know, we're all used to using more sophisticated technology in our daily lives. So the consumerization of IT, right? So if I come in as a seasonal worker in your warehouse and the app looks like the app on my Galaxy phone, I'm going to pick that up a lot faster, and I'm going to probably be a little happier in what I'm doing. But the most, I think, in our industry, the biggest factor right now is probably, you know, all these keyboardless devices that are coming out. Fantastic devices with great displays, you know, sensitive touch screens. But in terminal emulation, you know, we're used to hitting a lot of keys, you know, and shifting and function keys and all of that. Well, you know, how do you solve that problem easily? And then there's all kinds of other tech innovations that are, you know, affecting our businesses in many ways. You know, I think in the next month, Walmart is supposed to roll out a pilot, you know, doing inventory in their warehouses with drones, taking, you know, 30 photos a second of the racks and crunching with onboard analytics. Well, theoretically, with our API, you could pass that data into your TE application. It's not available today, so don't look for it on the website. But, you know, there are a lot of factors going on. So our customers have to be asking, you know, with all of this modernization, with all this technology, what can I do with my TE environment? You know, to try to keep up without a lot of risk, without spending a lot of money you don't have to. And of course, we want to improve productivity, but there are certainly a lot of programs that roll out and cost a lot of money and negatively impact productivity. So, you know, this is what we're trying to answer. So with modernization, you know, the main reason we want to modernize, you know, is moving from that text-based to graphical screens. You know, being able to use that all-touch screen device. as I mentioned with seasonal employees, but just onboarding in general. If you that old green screen we call it, it's really green text, I suppose. Those apps are it's kind of hard to read, and there's a lot of stuff on the screen that doesn't help the end user. If we can clean that up and give them nice clear directions and influence their actions in a more positive way, we're going to increase productivity. So application modernization over the last number of years has in many cases meant ripping and replacing your TE application or that host application that TE is connecting to. And we've heard a lot of web app implementations. All the WMS providers and ERP providers have got web clients, those options. The problem is with those, and we've seen it with bad clients as well, is in data collection, most of the time those apps aren't fast enough. Certainly if you're dealing with high volumes of scanning. So this is an example of, get rid of that application, hire developers, design the thing, take 9 months, spend $1 million, turn it on, and there's fewer boxes going out the door. So, we can't afford that risk. And so, what the goal is, we feel with modernization, and we're trying to hit that target with our SmartTE product, is maintaining all the good things about terminal emulation. That app works really well. It's really fast. You're not going to get a faster app out there. It's very secure. It's very reliable when implemented correctly, when it's designed for wireless. So maintaining those great benefits, but also getting the benefits of, say, a HTML5 app. You've got a beautiful user interface. You can, simplify just the processes of scanning, again, onboarding, training, all of those things. So we feel like, and our goal with SmartTE was kind of give you the best of both worlds. It's just a quick picture of some of the modernized screens that we can produce. So just to give you an idea of what we're talking about. And this is the kind of thing that Justin will be demoing here in a few minutes. So these are all the front end that the end user sees, but you're still running that exact same TE application on the back end. Nothing has changed except the front end. But, it makes a lot more sense to an end user. So I'm going to talk about some of the features of this specific product, StayLinked SmartTE. So in order to create modernized screens, we have two options. One is an automatic version, which it means out of the box. We call it dynamic screen reformatting. And so basically that means you go into our administrator and you set a few parameters. You can define some colors for buttons. You can upload a background image. You can get the customer logo on there if it's desired. And then you just turn it on. So it is truly out of the box. It's, it lives up to the word automatic. It absolutely works really well. Now, you're not going to get the most beautiful screen. So this screen on the left here with the nice icons, that's a screen that was built using our screen designer, which is the second choice. And Justin will talk about it a bit, but we do find that, end users sometimes use a mixed bag. So with our product, you can, have some automatically reformatted screens. You can also create some beautiful screens to go with it. So it all depends on the implementation. We do support rapid implementation, again, because our dynamic automatic screen regeneration does what it says and works out of the box. I mean, you can decide what your colors are and your layouts and turn the darn thing on and put a device out on the floor, and it's up and running. So really fast implementation. Obviously, if you're developing screens, that takes a little while longer. As an example, we had our trainer out at a customer site with a partner a couple of weeks ago, and he spent about a day and a half training the partner on the customer's system, which neither of them were that familiar with. And he did about 60 screens in a day and a half. And our trainer felt like now that the guy was trained up, he could probably do 120 screens in that time frame. So You can create them pretty quickly. Obviously, you want to stage them and test them and all of that, but still pretty fast for a brand new looking application. It's very key that we do not have to deploy any of those changes out to the mobile devices. Because of our architecture, everything resides on that server. So you make a change, hit save in the administrator. The next time a device connects in, it's going to display those new screens. There's no programming required. And of course, as I mentioned, no changes to that existing host application. You know, nobody wants to get involved in that if they were even allowed to do so. Something that we found now that we've rolled the product out in some competitive situations is our ability to incrementally modernize the application is, I mean, I'll be honest, much more of a benefit than I foresaw when we, originally put the product together. And that basically means that, the end user in this particular case wanted to, introduce the new screens to the user base gradually. So change the background color for a week or so, and then add a couple of buttons, that sort of thing, and just, be able to do that. And one of the big factors in being able to incrementally do this is that you do not have to deploy it out to the mobile device. So you can make changes all the time if you like, without, having to use an MDM product to manage updates of files and all of that. It's not necessary with StayLinked. And this is a really key point. Our StayLinked IQ product, which is our business intelligence product, it measures things like, how many picks were done in a shift, or how many scans, or how many orders were filled, those kinds of things. And it's included in the server today. It's a free version. And so you can take a baseline before you make any modernization. And as you incrementally modernize, you can test it. Or, because as you're probably making the leap, you don't have to deploy these changes, you can do A/B testing. You can change, you can test having the enter button right justified versus left, or the top or the bottom, or a different color, and see if somehow that does affect the productivity. You can have different devices connect to different instances of that application, or instances of the modernization, I should say. So there's an awful lot of built in with that, that measurement product. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about how we are different from competitive products out in the market. Some of these points I've already mentioned, but I want to make sure that they stand out as differentiators. So again, our reliability based on that architecture that I talked about. You don't drop connections. It just doesn't happen. That auto deployment, I think I may have hit on that just about enough, but that is such a big deal, not having to manage updates and different updates to different devices and track it and figure out why it worked and why it didn't and all of that. I think I explained the incremental app modernization. That is something unique to us. With competitive products, it's on or off. And something else that's related to that that's unique. So the worst thing that'll happen if you modernize screens with our product, say you're running some WMS package, and there's an upgrade to that WMS package, and something moves around on a screen, or there's new screens, and how whoever's in charge of managing the modernization wasn't aware of it. The worst thing that'll happen is we'll show you the original green screen application. So, you're still up and running. That can really be a problem with some of the other products out in the market. When I say accurate and reliable automatic screen regeneration, what we're hearing from the field is that other products are having a difficult time with what is supposed to be automatic screen reformatting or screen modernization. So, I guess we stand out because it just does what it says it does. And that's where we get the just works topic. And that screen on the left, actually, that's an example of the automatic screen regeneration. Stay true to the rows and columns, which is actually very important as well. So we don't scramble the screen. If we automatically modernize a screen and an end user gets a new touchscreen device, he doesn't have to search around for those elements of an application he's been using for years. We stay true to that. That gives us some limits on what we can do in terms of modernization in the automatic or dynamic mode, but we feel like that's really important. Accurate here is that we're really good at recognizing patterns on these screens because we've been writing them for years, the back-end applications. Because everything resides on the server, we don't put any additional resource burden on the mobile device. And I know all the modern devices are more powerful all the time, but if you've got 300 screens, for instance, and you're trying to store all that stuff on the mobile device, it could certainly affect how fast that device is going to perform. I mentioned our blowfish encryption, so super secure. We are integrated with SOTI enterprise management system. We consider them the leader in the market, and so there are crossover features. For instance, you can launch the SOTI remote control from our administrator by right-clicking a device. Just a few other points, and we'll be on to the fun stuff with the demo. So a big differentiator for us is our fair licensing policy. And so that means a couple of things. So if you're an existing customer of StayLinked and you're using our classic TE product, there's no additional licensing or charge for SmartTE. And if you buy SmartTE, it's all one and the same. So if you've got folks that you want to keep on the green screen for a while you modernize another business process, you don't have to buy 2 different licenses, which is the case with other products in the market. And frankly, in some cases, the super pickers, these guys that are so fast that, there is no improvement to be made probably with them. Heck, you might just leave them on the green screen. They might not even look at the darn screen, they're moving so fast. So, that's a big deal with licensing. Our licenses are also fully transferable. So, if we've got some of our older customers that were using Telzon 960s or 860s, that same license will work on your iPhone. It's all the same for us as long as you keep paying your maintenance and support agreement. And then finally, our licensing, as I mentioned early on, is a concurrent licensing model. So concurrent connections to our server. So if you have 100 devices, you may only need 80 or 70 licenses because they're not all connecting at the same time. So, we don't charge you for a device that's sitting in a cradle or sitting in a drawer or tucked away in a locker someplace or in for repair for that matter. We do support multiple OSs and device manufacturers. We had this on here. There were some competitive products that were exclusive to a vendor or two. I don't know if that's the case anymore, but we work across the board, and this does work, as I mentioned, with iOS and soon for Windows 10. And in fact, we have come out with one version for CE. So it's a little more work for us, but for the right business case, we can do SmartTE for CE6 device. We have the fastest TE in the market. It might be a little counterintuitive because we have a server in the mix, but we send so little data. The performance is amazing, and you'll see how fast the modernized screens are, because that's one of the goals. Unknowns with modernizing TE, putting a layer, a presentation layer in the mix. Is it going to slow it down like web apps are slow? And you'll see it's virtually the same speed, which is amazing. We talked about our architecture, which all of our advantages are kind of based on that. The StayLinked IQ product for measuring all kinds of things in your enterprise is pretty interesting. I'll talk about that in one more slide here. And then again, we think it's an advantage that we think about TE all the time. And we support all devices, and our customers can rely on the fact that, if they buy this today, they're going to be able to run it in 10 years on. All right, so these are a couple of screenshots from StayLinked IQ. I'm not going to dive into this deeply, but as I mentioned, it comes with our server. There will be a new version in Q1 that will be a chargeable product. But really, in the context of SmartTE, you can you can show management the improvements that you're making, or you can show yourself where it's not working, or test several different versions of modernized screens. The other thing I'll mention about this is, frankly, dashboards are a dime a dozen. Everybody can get a dashboard. You can use Tableau or something to take your data and make it pretty. We're not just taking a bunch of data and dumping it on our customers and saying, okay, here's data, figure out what it means. The goal of this product is to take just the right data, so about the devices in your warehouse and the communications and the network issues, and telling you what it means, and eventually giving you the path to address whatever issues might be underlying the product. So this is really exciting for us. We don't have time to talk about it today. Hopefully you'll be hearing a lot more. All right, it's time for the demo. So Justin, why don't you take control of the screen and show us some pretty pictures.
Awesome. All right, well, thank everyone for the time. There are a couple of questions here, and we'll get to those toward the tail end. We should have plenty of time to answer any questions. Just a couple of notes regarding app modernization. We brought this up when we were talking about IQ a bit, but we do have this sharp focus on TE, yes, but one of the things that we see about app modernization is to think of it holistically. So it's not just about what you're showing the users, which is what we'll demo right now, but also what sort of information you get on the back end. How could you even tell if modernization had truly worked, if it was truly providing value for you? So that is sort of one branch of our thoughts on modernization as IQ. SmartTE is certainly more the user-facing branch that we're talking about. So there were a couple of truths when we first started looking at modernization in general, because modernization has been going on for a long time. Browser apps are a modernization. Voice is a modernization play. All of these things are an attempt to move past something that ultimately, in our opinion, boiled down to the interface. So there were a couple of things that we knew we needed to address when we started doing modernization. One is that it had to be as fast as Telnet, or at least not noticeably much slower at all. Because again, when it comes to modernization, this has been a conversation that's been going on for a very long time. We wanted to make sure that that people weren't suffering productivity losses for better looks. The other thing that we knew, and this just comes from years of having written apps, is that no two apps are the same. Even if an application has the same label at two different customers, by the time it's deployed, the two don't look anything like each other. So there isn't a lot of consistency that you can rely on. And when you start making something like SmartTE, we sort of started with the mentality that sort of the smartest TE you can make is one that realizes you'll never know it all. And so we had to create a very dynamic capability inside of the server. The third point is that user acceptance is key. So there's a lot of talk around the new modern workforce and how they're used to having these very modern interfaces, and that's true. There's also a lot of talk about how it simplifies training and onboarding of new workers. That is also true. But that's not the entirety of your workforce today. You have the workforce you've always had. And so it's very important when you start looking at modernization to sort of find a way to walk them to the new modern UI. So what I'd like to show you guys is a demo app that we built. And again, anyone can have access to. We're hosting this demo. And this demo app, I'll just show you guys on my system here. We actually wrote a basic illustration of a Telnet application, and it has a couple of legitimate workflows that you can step through, including picking, put away, receiving for the illustration. Okay, so you actually have access to it from any SmartTE capable client. Let me pull this up. So I'm illustrating this on my iPhone, but actually any SmartTE capable client can also show it. Okay, so to access it, There's a run demonstration mode. And any SmartTE is actually capable of being demoed in 3 different modes, a handheld, a tablet, or a wearable. And basically, they're all the same app in the end, but especially when we start talking SmartTE, there's different advantages that you have when you can modernize the interface around each one of those form factors. So here's an illustration of the basic TE. And this is an important note, especially as we talk about the new devices out there, is let's just talk about making it relevant in the current environment. So it does basic TE very well, right? The interface is effectively identical to every other StayLinked client out there. Now, what most people don't know about StayLinked is that we've supported touch screens as long as there have been touch screens on rugged mobile devices. So this app could actually be driven by touching the numbers, or by touching the function keys, as an example. Okay, but this is sort of the first phase we looked at. Okay, get TE working on some of the newer OSs. So I'll go ahead and quit. The next phase that we saw would be to let's add the next level of modernization, which would be improve the touchability of the app. And our answer to that was dynamic. The thing about dynamic and these sort of predictive technologies, again, is that modernizing a very simple menu is easy. It's very easy. As long as everything remains consistent, it's no problem. So, for example, finding the function keys at the bottom there was a very easy thing to do. But when we move into menus where maybe it started with numbers on one screen and then starts with letters in the next screen, normally that would cause a predictive thing to break down. So here's an example of what the screen actually looks like behind the scenes. I'll just share the session here so you can see as I progress through the app what I'm actually looking at here. So what we've done is we've actually predictively detected the buttons, and we've made a couple of design choices here. For example, we've said we want anything that progresses through the app to be green and anything that backs you up through the app to be red. So that's a very intuitive way to say, okay, I'm moving through the application. I can tap on things to progress me forward, or I can tap on something red to move me back. That's a very simple thing to do. But we needed to add a lot of dynamic capability. So if, for example, you've got some one-off screens that don't match the formula we started with, we can actually change the formula on the fly. And there's no new intelligence we have to add out to the mobile device to do it. Also, we've improved the touchability of this. We've kept what we call inline graphics. So anybody who was staring at this app before in a basic Telnet app, this is what they're used to seeing. They see this, they'll be able to pick it up very quickly. But we can also make it much more touchable. So we have a feature called Smart Menu, which takes everything that's tappable on the screen and puts it in a nice scrolling menu that we can access that way. That can actually be configured to pop up automatically. So that was one of the second phase that we saw. What we truly saw as being the potential of this, though, was change the interface completely. What if you could redo the interface entirely around the touch experience? So this is the designer. And you can see right off the bat, this has much more graphic value to a user than a standard sign-on screen. So I'll just log in here. And just to show you guys. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'll go ahead.
I just wanted to point out to everyone, if it wasn't clear, that you can see that actual session, the actual Telnet session on that small window moving along with the graphic screen. So you can see, that it's virtually just as fast as the old screen. Yeah, this is the same app. And you can see we've done a couple of things, like we fully iconized this menu. And there's no more function keys in there. For example, F3 to exit has been turned into an X up in the top corner. So this is much more the user experience that people would expect of a native app. And it lets us do things you couldn't do with Telnet before. It's very clear now to see what we're doing. It's also called out what data we're supposed to be showing the user, versus on this share window, you can see, the text that you're trying to call out is the same size, and really your only options around that were color. Now we can completely change the user experience that way. But it also brings up some really cool potential for what you could do with modernization. So
as an example, in picking. Say I'm a picker and I see this item number, what the heck is that? I could preview it, and that's what I'm supposed to be grabbing. All right, so as I progress through this thing, I can pull up the image of what I'm supposed to be grabbing right off the shelf. Or maybe it's a help button that pulls up an image of what the workflow is supposed to be like. What part of the box am I supposed to be scanning? So have this sort of user self-training kind of thing. So those are sort of the three flavors. There's actually sort of a fourth flavor, which is a hybrid of both. You could do both designed screens and dynamic screens. And honestly, we found that to be the most sort of productive combination. There are screens that have very high value graphically, and then there's ones that don't really make a huge difference. And the nice part about this solution is that you don't have to be all or nothing one way or the other. You can have a combination. You could have the same environment showing you exactly what I'm showing you here, which is standard TE for the people that's more productive for, dynamic for the people you're transitioning to a modern interface, and for the new workforce, all they ever see is something like this. Okay, just real briefly, I'll also show you this. This is the IQ. This is also a live demo, so you can access this via the URL that's in the window here. And again, this is the embedded version built into the StayLinked server, and we have hamstrung it a bit for two reasons. One is we wanted to maintain value for the full product, but also we wanted to maintain the performance of the server itself. So if you guys would like more details on that, there's going to be more forthcoming as we get closer to the full release. But you're also welcome to play around in this space. So Jay, back to you.
Yes. Would you give me back the presentation control, please?
Yes.
Great. Well, I think we're ready to touch on some of the questions. Feel free to type them into the chat window on the right. Get this up. I want to put our sorry, that took a little while. To get our contact information up here, feel free to reach out anytime. At StayLinked.com/evaluation, you can sign up for free product demo. We'll give you 30 days. We'll give you, 60 days if you need it. So please feel free to try the product. Let's see. I'll get to a few questions here. We may not get to them all. Okay, so here's a question from Tom. It says, regarding the rollout, will the current TE client on devices display the SmartTE screens? And I guess the answer, and Justin, jump in if I step all over myself here. The short answer is probably. Your license will work for it. It's just a question if you have the latest version. So if you're not on the latest version, you can upgrade it, and your license will allow you to take advantage of all these features.
Yeah, just to clarify on that, the TE client does matter. So it's only going to show graphically enabled screens on anything that's branded SmartTE. So we do actually have the initial release of a few CE Windows Mobile devices with SmartTE support. But as it stands today, the most widely supported SmartTE platforms are iOS, Android, and soon to be Win 10. And
that's a really good point.
Yeah,
absolutely. And so the fact of the matter is, yeah, most of our install is probably on CE devices or Windows Mobile devices today. But as I mentioned, we've got a few devices supported with those OSs, and for the right business case, we can go down the path of creating that. But today, any Android device in the ruggedized space, or even a phone for that matter, is generally supported, as well as iOS, and as I mentioned, soon Windows 10. So before, as soon as Windows 10 ruggedized devices hit the market, we'll be ready to go on those.
Yeah, one quick note as well is that, again, we do have this sort of overriding do no harm to the existing environment kind of policy. So if your client doesn't support SmartTE, but you've gone through all the work of doing a full graphic modernization or even enabled the dynamic stuff, If your TE client, if your StayLinked client rather, isn't capable of showing it, you just see the screen you've always seen. So there's not different versions of the server software. You don't have to maintain different versions of the TE host config or anything like that. The TE client will show whatever it's capable of showing.
Okay, great. So we've got quite a few questions. I don't know if we'll get to all of them. But you, Justin, here, Dennis is asking, can the developer design and test screens without having access to the actual wearable or handheld device?
Absolutely. Yeah, any StayLinked client can be configured for sort of any profile of screen size, which is really how this is done. You know, you don't necessarily build the screens to a particular platform. What you're really doing is designing them to a row and column count, you know, or resolution kind of thing. So we have a desktop client, a Java client actually, that's capable of doing all the SmartTE features that you could test with on your desktop and never even have a mobile device.
Okay, great. Next question here, Jennifer had a few questions regarding high jump, and so she's using high jump today with Georgia SoftWorks. And she's asking if they can use SmartTE.
Yes. Yeah, it's actually,
the answer is yes, and I think it goes back to the same answer as before if it's a supported device today. So again, you know, mainly Android and iOS today, Windows 10 soon, and some CE devices with more of those to come. Okay. It's a bit of a technical one, so this is definitely yours. This is from Alejandro. He's asking if SmartTE handles the barcode reader directly.
We do native support on everything we can. For everything else, we have a very intelligent wedging capability. But any device where we're given the opportunity to take native support of the scanner, we do. But we do it in a way where we kind of kick the doors open on it a bit. We try not to let you configure too much on the mobile device. So things like, I want to add an enter to the end of a barcode scan. That's all done in the server. So you just pass whatever you want to the server and let the server handle the data manipulation portion of it.
Okay, great. So the question here from Harry, he's asking how can he get access to the demo, heads to review. And I think I'll start the answer and you can finish it, Justin. You know, if you download our client, for instance, if you download, you know, if you go to iTunes, you can download the iOS client, or you can get Android clients from Google Play or from Amazon. Also, we have clients for the specific data collection devices that we support on our website. So you would go to this evaluation page and sign up to get those. And once you've got that loaded, as Justin demonstrated, there is a demonstration mode which will automatically connect you to that demo that Justin showed. But feel free to reach out to us directly or any of our tech support folks, and we'll be happy to walk you through it. Yeah, we will have a document kind of explaining those steps a little more clearly soon, and I'll get it out to this distribution.
Yeah, for the quick note to Harry, if you're an existing customer with a current support and maintenance contract, you get this upgrade. It's a feature of support and maintenance. So to upgrade, whether you know it or not, you actually have access to the StayLinked portal, and it gives you access to all the downloads and update files to get your existing environment to something that's SmartTE capable. And then it's just a matter of, again, demoing the clients as Jay mentioned.
Okay. Well, great. I'm going to try to get to a few more questions here. Dwight's asking if we support the MC9200 Android device.
Yes. Yep. It's SmartTE capable. Yeah.
That's a good answer. I'm getting quite a few questions about getting access to the presentation. We will do that. We are recording this session as well, so if all goes well with the system, we'll be making that available also. Sachs is asking, what's the estimated ETA for the next version of StayLinked IQ? And I I know it's Q1. I'm feeling like it's later in Q1. Justin, is that reasonable?
That's your optimism shining through, I can tell. No, it's actually, we were aiming for around the first of the year, but it really is going to depend on a few things. We're working with a number of software partners and platforms that enable this sort of thing. And really the hardest part for us is drawing the line at where we call V1 and what's going to have to wait until the next version. So Q1 is about the best answer. Whether it's early or late is going to kind of depend.
Great, great. Tom is asking if he can use the evaluation product to connect to his own environment, and yes, you can. It's in the demo mode. It's configured to hit our server, but if you get an evaluation copy of our software, you can point it at whatever application you prefer. Looks like Jennifer's using a Samsung Galaxy S4. Supported, correct, Justin?
Yeah, so it's a unified client. So effectively, SmartTE is supported on every Android device. What we do is, if it is running on a device that has some sort of customization capability, so for example, you load it on a rugged Android device that we've seen in-house before, it will customize itself around that hardware. But otherwise, it will act like a StayLinked standard Android generic with SmartTE capability.
Okay, great.
There was one other question from Tom asking about, can you use this to modernize desktop TE apps? Yes, absolutely. So we do have a Java client. If you're using more seats, then it would be more licenses. But if you're using spare seats or something that you've got, you don't have to. Again, technically the client is free. You can load it on as many devices as you want. What people have purchased is the number of seats that have access at any given time. So, and if you'd like to try it, again, you're welcome to add some evaluation licenses to that environment, and you can run it sort of concurrently to test it out and see if it's going to be something you like.
Okay, I'm going to try to get to a few more questions. Ralph is asking for the credentials for logging into the demo, so that's a good point. As far as the handheld demo, it's, well, why don't we mention both?
Okay. Okay. So the handheld demo, there's no credentials. It'll auto log in. The user prompt, you can type in anything in there. For the IQ demo, iq.staylinked.com, the credentials are SLDemo, SLDemo. And that will be as part of the demo guide that we'll be providing here soon. So anybody who would like access to it can reference that as well.
Okay. Let's see. Patty is asking if it's compatible with Linux-based thin clients. I know, well, we do have a Java version, correct?
Yeah, so are we,
I guess
it would depend on if it's a desktop thin client hardware kind of thing, or if we're talking a handheld or a portable kind of environment. We do have a Java-based client intended more for desktop, laptop kind of environments that'll run native on anything that runs Java. For Linux handhelds, that's something that we'll have to talk about developing SmartTE capability.
Okay, great. Great. Well, I think we're about out of time. There are a few more questions. We will get back to everyone whose question we didn't get to. We want to thank you for your time today. Hopefully you can see the slide with our contact information. At this point, I'm having a few technical difficulties, so hopefully that's available to you. Again, reach out anytime. We're happy to do a demo for you, or to do, a more of a private session and show you how to modernize your own screens. Thank you, Justin, and please, why don't you shut off that recording when the time is right.
Thanks, everyone. We appreciate the time.
Right.